Sportageous. Sport gets smarter.
Hello everyone, joining me today on the Sportageous Videocast is the co-founder and CEO of Blinder, Ross McConnell. How are you doing, Ross?
I'm great for Cam. Thank you very much. We're enjoying a new round of freedom here in Auckland, New Zealand. Just coming out of another period of lockdown. So enjoying being out and about again. Thank you.
That's fabulous to know. And I'll just give our listeners a bit of background about Blinder as well before we we progress our conversation. So Blinder is an amazing tool that is revolutionizing the sports industry by offering a unique way to protect athletes' privacy when they're dealing with the media. And not only that, it's also empowering players and so many other people in many ways, which we will find out all about with Ross today. And their clientele base is strong and impressing. I'll list some of the names. So Netball Australia, Netball New Zealand, Rugby New Zealand, Wallabies, Penrith Panthers, Sky Sports, Cardiff City, and the FA. And I'll just leave it to that. It's a very long list. And we're actually using Blinder today for this call to communicate and to record it. So fabulous tool, Ross. How is Blinder doing amid this pandemic?
Oh, we're doing great, thanks, and thanks for the kind introduction. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks, Furkan. You mentioned the focus on the initial focus for Blinder on protecting athlete privacy, and obviously just before we actually the pandemic hit us, we released this video interview technology onto the market, and given the circumstances with a lot of professional teams and media organizations needing to produce content in remote circumstances, we've had a good wave of adoption since the crisis hit us. So yeah, it's been fortunate for us in that regard. And I guess that's how we came to be in touch, Furkan, and with you guys and Sportageous. And tell me a bit about what you guys are aiming to do with Sportageous, because I think it creates great context for what Blinder's trying to achieve in the market as well.
Absolutely. Would love to tell you. So basically, Sportageous, how we describe it in simple words, is a sports media platform, but one that challenges the meme and rumor-based culture. And in saying that, what it actually means is that we saw with the rise of social media, a lot of people were being ridiculed, and rumor culture is now pretty common. And so we basically, myself and a few of my friends started the company, and on the back of that, we're passionate about sports, but we also respect sports person in general. And also through Sportageous, we're aiming to eliminate the bias that exists in the industry, so to do with women in sports, and also focusing on companies like yourself who are actually making the difference with Sportstech and tools out there. So that's basically us in a nutshell. It's been just over a year since we've come on board and doing pretty well so far. So I guess I'll just ask you the usual question, like how did Blinder start and who came up with the idea?
Yeah, so Blinder got started a few years ago now as the brainwave of my good friend and co-founder, Kaylee Wilson. So Kaylee was the communications manager at the New Zealand Rugby League. So in his time there, he was working with some of the highest profile athletes in Australasia, really, the likes of Sonny Bill, Benji Marshall, Kieran Foran, Sean Johnson in the early part of his career. And it was Kaylee's job to connect his athletes with the media. He was based in New Zealand. A lot of his athletes that he looked after were applying their trade in Australia and even into the UK. And so he relied on phone interviews a lot for connecting his athletes with the media, and was just immensely frustrated with how inefficient and difficult it was to connect his athletes whilst protecting their privacy. You mentioned that protecting the athletes and respecting the athletes was a big part of what Sportageous is about. And Kaylee is an immensely respectful individual. And he did not believe that putting his athletes in touch with the media should come at the sacrifice of their privacy. And I think, many athletes are also concerned about some of the things that you were referring to with Sportageous, just the risk of being misquoted or taken out of context. And so, Kaylee came up with this idea. Wouldn't it be great if, as a communications manager, I had an application where I could schedule important calls for my athletes. It would allow easy access for the media by allowing them to dial straight through to the athlete's own mobile phones without ever knowing their personal contact details, and also record those conversations so that those recordings could be used for fact checking, media training, and perhaps even digital content. And so really what it was about was providing a platform where the media and the athletes, or the newsmakers, or the talent as we refer to them as, could engage with confidence and the security of knowing that not only their privacy was protected, but also there was a true record of the conversation that they could fall back on in the case of any disputes. So that's where we came from, and Blinder was initially started as an audio only solution. So really just supporting phone interviews for media with not only professional athletes, but we've worked with a lot of music industry PR professionals and had recording artists doing a lot of interviews on the platform as well. And then really just seeing the move into video in the early part of this year. And so video has been a really big focus for us now because, it's great for remote content production. Obviously, video is a medium that the audience wants to engage with. And so it's, really valuable enhancement for both sides of the media divide, whether it's the high profile teams that we've traditionally worked with, or the media organizations who are now also using Blinder to connect with remote news sources.
It's a great story, and also on the video end as well, like this call is a proof that you're doing well as we're using Blinder. So let's talk about.
I hope it was easy to connect with me.
Oh, very easy, very easy.
Notwithstanding all of the times we had to reschedule it due to health reasons and that sort of thing. So
absolutely, no, I've been anxiously waiting for this call. We've rescheduled a lot, but glad it's finally happening. So.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
So let's talk about the business model of Blinder. So actually, who are your targeted customers, and what type of product solutions, with what type of value proposition are you offering to them?
As I was just saying, initially we were focused on high profile teams, sports, entertainment, and what we offered was a software as a service solution that the communications manager within the teams can use to streamline that connection process between external members of the media and the teams that they're looking after internally. So those teams pay a monthly subscription fee to utilize Blinder across their team. And since the advent of our video capability, we're also, selling directly to the media organizations as well. And, I think there's been an evolution in the a significant evolution in our value proposition, really. We were very, very privacy focused in the first phases, and we've still got a platform, as you said at the start of this call, that protects the privacy of the athletes when it's the team that is using our technology. But what we also focused on very, very closely from the start was a solution that was just really easy for people to use the very first time. We wanted this to be technology that made it easy for the media to access kind of sources of news anywhere in the world without them having to acquire new software or skills to make the connection, right? And so in the case of an athlete, where a communications manager was scheduling a call for an athlete, the athlete never ever needs to download any software. They literally just receive a call from a number that they recognize and they answer their phone just like a regular phone call. And we've provided all the magic in the background. And as we've evolved into being a video interview solution as well, we've really kept that DNA in the business of making those connections as easy as possible for first-time users. So, if you were connecting, obviously I'm a bit of an expert at using Blinder, so not such of an issue for me. But if you were connecting with an interview subject and this was the first time they've ever seen Blinder, as you probably know, Vakan, is that they receive a text or an email. There's a link in those messages, they simply tap the link and it opens the call in their browser on any device with a microphone and camera. They don't need to download any software. If they know how to receive a text message and hit a link, then they know how to do a blinder call already. So we've really focused on making the application as easy as possible for people to engage with through the channels that we know everyone operates on already: email, text message, phone calls, and video in the browser. So no one needs to learn any new tricks to connect to a blinder call.
Right. So just confirming as well, so you don't have to download an app or anything. It's just all on the browser?
That's right. Yeah. So for the customers who are paying to use Blinder, there's obviously some adoption involved. So they register for an account, and they're driving the ship, so to speak. So there's some adoption for them. But for the people that they're connecting with, take a journalist, for example, who wants to connect with a news source that's an eyewitness of a breaking news story. They can connect with them through any communications channel, like I was saying, whether it's text, email. They can even connect through Twitter, for example. Send a link, and there's no new software for that news source to adopt. They hit a link, it opens the video call in their browser. And what's really unique about Blinder is that we're capturing high definition isolations of each party on the call. So what that does is it gives content producers great flexibility in post-production to present the content the way that they want to. And so hopefully we'll see some of that come through in the final, the finished article that you present of this interview, and the flexibility you get for how I'm presented, how you're presented, and that's made possible through those HD isolations that I was talking about.
Right, that's a very interesting feature, and that's one of the challenges we were having at Sportageous when we started our videocast, is in the post-production phase, where you actually don't have much flexibility and you just have to work with what you get. But that's a fabulous feature, Ross. And obviously, Ross, I'm keen to know about your background as well. Like, are you into sports yourself?
Well, yeah, I'm a lifelong sports fan. Kaylee and I actually, the first time we met, I think I was about 10 and he was 8, and he likes to say it was at the start of a swimming race. The first time we met was on the blocks of a 50-meter freestyle race, and as he likes to say, the second time we met was when I finished. So it's fair to say he was a slightly better swimmer than I was, but we played first 15 rugby together at high school as well. Keen triathletes, and yeah, look, we're both lifelong sports fans, as I've said, and my passion as a sports fan is rugby, and I'm a keen follower of the All Blacks in particular, as you would be from New Zealand. So it was one of the attractions for getting stuck into Blinder in the early stages was, it's an attractive industry that we're working in. But in terms of my background, I come from very much a sort of an entrepreneurial background. I've started several businesses myself, been an owner operator pretty much forever since graduating from the University of California, Berkeley, with an MBA. And so that was really marked the start of my entrepreneurial career back in the early 2000s. And when Kaylee came to me with this idea, if I had thought it only had relevance within the sports and entertainment market, I don't think I would have been on board. But when he described the pain points that he was trying to solve, I just recognized a lot of the pain points for myself, in terms of a lot of the privacy issues that we all deal with now, because we're carrying our communications devices around in our pocket, the spam calls that we all get, the phone tennis that we all play when we're trying to, schedule or arrange calls, trying to figure out whether the person on the other end is going to be comfortable with the technology that I prefer to use. So there's been a massive fragmentation in the communications market since the emergence of app-based solutions. And most of the dominant solutions these days are very closed preference-based solutions, and they force you to adopt their technology before you can make a connection with each other. And I call out WhatsApp as a classic example of that. I'm a big fan of WhatsApp. I use it myself, but every time I go to connect with someone new, I have to figure out whether they're a WhatsApp user themselves.
Yeah.
And so that just adds friction to the connection. And so I really saw an opportunity for our platform in the future of work and the future of communications generally. And I'm really excited about the long-term potential for what we've created.
Absolutely. And with the I believe it would be a game changer for how females connect with the externals as well. So what do you think on that?
Yeah, well, Kaylee would certainly agree with you there, as would I, of course. But, what I didn't mention about Kaylee's background is that he also worked in professional netball after he was at the Kiwis. So, one of his charges there was Maria Tutaia, who's since become Maria Falau. She would speak eloquently herself on some of the issues she'd see for young female athletes initially coming onto the scene, and some of the concerns that they might have around how they're being connected with the media. So New Zealand Netball was one of our earliest adopters, and Kerry Manders, who's the communications manager there, has put a lot of effort into refining their processes so that their athletes can be available to the media without ever sacrificing their personal privacy. So I'd agree with you there for sure. And then one of the customers that we're most proud to have on board is the US Women's National Soccer Team, who are using Blinder for their media through their FIFA World Cup campaign, which obviously they came out victorious last year.
Wow.
And some of the highest profile athletes on the planet, the likes of Megan Rapinoe, who was a fairly outspoken individual herself, made a lot of waves during that campaign, in particular with, I think, some of her political perspectives. And so I take an immense amount of pride that a team like that is using Blinder to get their message out and tell their stories. So
No, that's fabulous, Ross. And just a bit about obviously Blinder yourself, who came up with the name?
I might be guilty as charged there. There's a real sporting reference. It's a bit of a an Aussie Kiwi, maybe British euphemism to say that you've had a blinder when you've played an outstanding game in sports, right? So that was one of the things that attracted us to it. But we also referred to the initial audio solution that we put out. We referred to them as blind calls because it allowed the athlete to receive a call on their mobile phone without sharing their personal contact details, which is a bit of a neat trick that we first came up with. And so blind calls, Blinder, the sporting reference associated with that. And we felt like that was a good fit for us.
Absolutely. And
unfortunately, they don't use that same term in sports in the US, so we're going to have to educate them a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a very clever name, very, very. So also tell me, while we're speaking about the name as well, how important is branding for a company?
Oh, look, I think branding is incredibly important. I think the name has to be pretty simple and memorable. And as I said, some of our initial ideas on the naming side of things was, were discounted because of that issue. But probably more so is I think the way that you operate in the market and the impression that you create within the minds of your customers about what your brand stands for. And a term that we use a lot within Blinder is the issue of trust. We want to become the most trusted communications platform on the planet. And people will trust us not only because we protect their contact details or make that possible and capture a recording so they can use it as a record and have it to fall back on, but also because we have a real focus on feeling our customers' pain and trying to find not only solutions that address those pain points, but also providing a level of customer service that when they're having challenges with our technology, that there's always someone there available for them to talk to and to help them through any issues. As simple as we've tried to keep our technology to use, people will always, run into issues every now and again. And so, we have this phrase at Blinder, feel their pain to earn their trust. And I think we do a great job of walking that talk as well. So hopefully all of those types of, it's not just the name and the design of your brand, but also the behaviors that your team exhibits in the market. And hopefully those behaviors come to be positively associated with the name of your company as well. So we're doing the best that we can on that front.
And you're doing well. So when you developed the product, did you go through a beta testing phase or worked with potential customers who were involved in the development process?
Yeah, so this was one of the most enjoyable phases of business development for me, because as a former engineer, I love the problem-solving process, right? And so Kaylee had this idea, wouldn't it be great if the athletes could receive calls on their mobile phone without sharing their number with the caller? And I went, yeah, that would be cool. How would we do it? And so, there was a phase there where we sort of threw ideas around and talked about what the user experience would need to be like to make that possible. And then had to figure out technologically whether it was even feasible. And so we had some good friends at ClearPoint in New Zealand, who are a software development company that have ended up being shareholders as well. And they helped us with that technical feasibility early on, and actually produced a prototype for us, very cost effectively early on. And so it was important for us to take that prototype out to some target customers and see whether it was something that they'd used before we built a production version of our solution. And so I remember one of the more nerve-wracking moments that I've ever had in business was when we demonstrated our prototype in Melbourne in front of every communications manager from the AFL. And so there we were with the prototype version of our product that might have cost only a few $1,000s to put together, and we demonstrated it live in front of a room full of seasoned professionals, and thankfully it went well. And the AFL headquarters, in fact, was one of our first customers for the solution. So from there, from prototyping, you do go into sort of what's thinking around what your minimum viable product is. And making sure that you're not assuming that you have all the answers. Getting a minimum viable product out into the market that you haven't over-engineered, and make sure that it's doing the job for people that you want it to do. And so we've taken that I guess you'd call a lean approach towards our product development, and just always paid a lot of attention to what our customer feedback has been. When we were getting out and selling early, and there's two things that two valuable pieces of feedback that you can get out of any sales conversation, right? One is revenue, and the other one is where a customer will tell you what they don't like about your solution and how you can make it better for them. And we've tried to. You've got two ears and one mouth, and we've tried to use them in those proportions for most of the time that we've been in business. So,
and I saw the multi-party capability feature hitting as well. So, congrats on that! Fabulous. I've tried it. And so, what's next for Blinder?
Yeah, and I think that the multi-party is an example of not getting ahead of yourself. We really wanted to focus on perfecting video for one-to-one. So in the situations that you are in, trying to give our customers the best possible video quality in those situations before we got ahead of ourselves and tried to produce HD video for up to 4 parties, which we're now doing. And so what's next? We're focused on some enhancements around media's ability to live broadcast interviews like this, so they can already do that for one-to-one, but we've got some multi-party green room tricks up our sleeve that we think will be valuable for live broadcasters. And then really it's about focusing on how we can help media organizations and content producers extract more value out of the record that they're capturing. So what are the workflows that content producers then have after the interview is completed, and before they can publish a piece of content? And so there's some pain points to be dealt with there that we're getting focused on in the immediate future. And then going completely mobile with the solution to support true, mobile, agile, cost-effective news gathering for broadcasters and media outlets. So through the development of a mobile application, which will streamline communications for remote news teams, really.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to the next phase. What is something that you've learned and that you lean on every day?
You never know where a good idea is going to come from, right? I think this is one of the things that our team has really challenged each other on, and we've got this value that's keep an open mind until it's time to decide. I think making decisions in a timely way, not too early, but only in time. It allows you to keep an open mind around how different things different problems can be solved. And I think if you commit to a particular path too early in your planning cycle, that you cut yourself off from better ideas that might come along, or other options that may exist for solving things more elegantly. And so I think that would be sorry about the dog in the background. This is part of working from home, isn't it? But I think that would be, probably the biggest lesson that I've taken from this journey so far, and something the team, continues to push each other on a regular basis.
Great words. And if you had a time machine, well, everyone wants a time machine, but let's just say if you had a time machine, would you go back and change anything?
No, I'm not one to dwell on the regrets of what we've done. I think as long as you keep an open mind and make sure that the learning feedback loop is always open, you'll manage to find a way through. I probably, if I could use the time machine, I'd use it to fast forward 12 or 18 months to a time when hopefully, our prospective customers in the industry general is in a lot less pain. And perhaps we're all coming out the other side with some valuable lessons in terms of how we can support each other with, mobile, agile, cost-effective content production. I think, there's a heck of a lot of learnings that have gone on since the pandemic hit around the type of content that our audience is interested in seeing. I would point to one program in particular that we've supported, which was Sky Sports Isolation Nation program, which was broadcast during our first round of lockdowns in sort of probably April, May. And that was basically, a 30-minute episode that was going out on Sky Sports twice a week, which was basically just conversations between the hosts and high-profile professional rugby players in New Zealand, much like we're doing here. So seeing the likes of Aaron Smith, Bowden Barrett in their own environments at home in a relaxed setting, without a camera crew or a TV camera in their face. And we were just getting insights from some of our favorite athletes that we'd never really seen before, right? We'd seen them in an environment that wasn't very common before all this happened. And I think I would suspect that it's given the audience an appetite for that sort of content that I hope content producers pay attention to and continue to provide when things return to normal. So absolutely.
And we've had a great chat so far, Ross. So what is your advice to budding entrepreneurs, especially amid these challenging times?
I've always had a focus on going back to that feel their pain to earn their trust comment. I've always had a focus on solving customer pain points and providing them with painkillers instead of vitamins, shall we say? And so I think there's a heck of a lot of pain out there in the world at the moment, and so therefore a lot of problems to solve. And if you have a unique idea about how to go about solving those problems, then just double down on your homework. Really, make sure that it's not an isolated case that you're seeing, and that you really get out and have as many conversations with prospective customers as possible, and keep a really open mind to how you could go about solving the problem that you've seen. I go right back to our origins when Kaylee came to me with this idea and the description of the pain point that he wanted to solve, and I think we decided that he was going to go out and have 100 conversations with his peers in the communication industry around the world and in professional sports before we decided whether it was something that we were going to take any action on. And so, I would encourage others to do the same on that.
Great advice, Ross. And thank you again for your time today. I'm so glad it finally happened with all the rescheduling. And I'm looking forward to when it finally hits YouTube and our website, obviously. So anxiously waiting for it to be released. Again, thank you very much for your time, and glad to see that Blinder is doing so well. And we're certainly looking forward to the next set of features as well, and we'll keep using Blinder ourselves. We obviously see the value and the potential, and it has helped us in many ways, especially also in connecting to female athletes, which we touched on earlier. So again, thanks again for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You too, Fakan, and keep in touch and keep the feedback coming. It's all really helpful.
I will. Thank you. Thanks again.